Well, from the White House to a Manhattan courtroom where adult film actress Stormy Daniels took the stand today to testify in former President Donald Trump's hush money trial. Trump and his lawyers requested a mistrial. They say Daniels' testimony about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump has nothing to do with the case and is extremely prejudicial. The judge rejected the request while agreeing that Daniels said more at times than she should have. Trump denies the encounter between he and Daniels took place. All right, let's discuss this case with former federal prosecutor and legal analyst Renato Mariotti. Renato, great to be with you today. I first want to kind of take a step back and look at how prosecutors are building this particular case. The first 2 weeks, as we know, were spent talking about a conspiracy between Trump and his former so-called fixer, Michael Cohen, and David Pecker, former publisher of the National Enquirer. And now Trump is not charged with conspiracy. So explain why they started with this.
Well, they had to tell a story. You know, a trial, it's not something where you can, as a lawyer, basically explain the case to the jury throughout. You have an opening statement in which you give an overview of the case, and then you have to put on various witnesses. And as somebody who's tried a lot of cases, I'll tell you in many ways it's like staging a play with each witness as an actor. And so essentially what you have to do is start with witnesses that tell a story. And in terms of chronology and in terms of a story that the juries can be able to get their head around, it made sense to start with the relationship that Trump had with David Pecker and the National Enquirer. Now, of course, moving to the relationship that he had with Stormy Daniels. And then presumably they're going to, at the end, talk more about the false statements of business records, which are the core charge here in the case.
Yeah, and yesterday the jury saw 11 invoices, 11 checks, and 12 ledger entries related to the $130,000 that Cohen paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Prosecutors say that those are the false business records right there, and falsifying business records in New York State. Well, it can be a misdemeanor. So why is Trump charged with 34 felony cases, counts that is? Explain that to us.
Sure. So under New York law, falsifying business records is, as you mentioned, a misdemeanor. However, it becomes a felony if the falsification of business records is done with the intent to conceal another crime. And so the other crime here is this alleged conspiracy to commit an election crime, essentially a sort of expenditure of funds beyond the limit for a campaign in order to benefit the campaign. That is the crime that is being used to take this from a misdemeanor to a Class E felony, which is the lowest level of felony. And that is essentially why there's so much of a focus on that alleged conspiracy by prosecutors.
Yeah, and as we know, Stormy Daniels, she took this stand today where she recounted her encounter with Trump. Of course, we've heard her in interviews talk about this, but why is it important, I guess, to this case that she testifies?
I do think prosecutors called her to the stand, in part because he denies that. He actually denies the encounters took place. But secondly, and I think more importantly, it drives home for the jury why Trump wanted to suppress this information, the story, in the first place. Because it's one thing to kind of understand that logically. It's another thing to hear and see in front of you what that might have looked like, and the jury has to imagine what that might have looked like if it was on 60 Minutes, a few weeks before the election.
Renato, do you think the former president, do you think he should take the stand in this case? Do you think that's a good idea in his own defense?
So I really think, given his undisciplined nature, given the fact that he could be impeached, not only with the many false statements he's made, but also a variety of legal problems that he has, including the E. Jean Carroll verdict and some of the other legal issues that he has, significant legal issues. I think he likely will be advised by his attorneys not to take the stand.
Renato, thank you so much for weighing in. We really appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.